Welcome to the Sonoma County Winegrape Commission's Winegrape Chronicles. In this monthly series, we'll follow several Sonoma County growers and winemakers through a typical winemaking season, giving you a glimpse into the process behind making some of the world's finest wines.
My name is George MacLeod. I'm the senior member of the MacLeod family here at the MacLeod Family Vineyards. We're located about halfway between Santa Rosa and Sonoma, in the foothills to the west of Highway 12. This ranch that you're visiting this morning is the result of a decades-old family dream. And we began here removing the rocks that you see here so that we could plant. And this is the result of some 30 years of hard work, and this is what you see here this morning.
My name is Mark Burningham. I'm with Benizer Family Winery, and I oversee our wine growing. And actually here today on late June to talk about doing some leafing on our Sauvignon Blanc. And this is a normal process for us in working with our growers on sustainable wine growing practices to meet in the vineyard with the vineyard manager, with the owner of the property, and to continue to work on improving that the quality of the wine. George has been a really good example of a grower that's embraced sustainable practices. With the help of Linda Hell from Madrone Vineyard Management, we've been able to put together a really good farm plan here that has converted George's vineyard over in very quick time, in about 12 months, over to more natural farming practices that we believe will show a better sense of place of the wines from this property. We're already seeing that in the bottlings last year. George got a chance to taste with our winemaker Rodrigo Soto the wine we made from this property last year.
I'd like to talk for a moment about the soils themselves. The soil here, the topsoil, is about 18 inches, which is very shallow. And that topsoil is somewhere between 30 and 50% rocks. And when we go up in the vineyard, we'll see some of those rocks in there, just like you see here. And this ranch is an eroded alluvial fan from the mountain range across from us. And all of these rocks are deposited in this alluvial fan, so that we get tremendous flavors and aromas growing through this really lean soil.
Okay, this is an example of a really good site for diversity in Sonoma County. It's an elevated site off the floor of Sonoma Valley. It's got these nice cool breezes that come in the afternoon, keeps it a cool climate, but it has these very well-drained soils. So it really adds another aspect to the wine that we really like for Sauvignon Blanc.
We've talked about clearing the rocks from the vineyard and how much trouble they've caused us as we got ready to cultivate this vineyard, but we haven't spoken about what benefits they bring to the wine and the grapes themselves. And the benefit that they bring is that they introduce a lean, Spartan nature to the soil itself. So that these vines, when these vines produce the 3 to 4 tons an acre that we get here, they really fight for each one of those tons. In the beginning of this ranch, we used to start watering sometime in the middle of May, whether the vines really needed it or not, because we just were not that sophisticated. But now we find there's the vines themselves give you a very strong signal of when they're going to need some water. For example, if you look at these canes shooting up here, as long as this little tendril is sticking up higher than the first leaf, this vine is saying, George, I really don't need any water. I'm okay right now. When the vine begins to need some water, these tendrils begin to fold over. See how this is beginning to come down like this? That's beginning to tell you, boss, I'm starting to get a little thirsty. And then when the tendrils have completely fallen down, and you get this rounded at the end of the tip, this vine is telling me, I could use some water this afternoon, boss.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about one of the things that brought us to this site in our search for cooler Sauvignon Blanc. And George pointed it out to me early on, is the direction of these rows here, as you can see, and then how this is a funnel right out to the Sonoma coast. So this every day gives us these nice cool breezes that come in here and cool the site off. Plus having the elevation, the rocks in the ground, we also have the cooling breezes that come in the afternoon. In this road direction, we have a really unique challenge here as far as how we manage the exposure to the grapes. Sauvignon Blanc, again, we do not want direct sun exposure to the grapes. Right? It's really thin-skinned. We want to retain those really nice citrus flavors and aromas in the grapes and not bake them out. Leaf pulling is very important here. I want to introduce Marjorie MacLeod, who's the next generation of the MacLeod family in managing this property, and also Linda Hell from Madrone Vineyard Management. And between the three of us, we'll meet in the vineyard, and it's what our sustainable wine growing program is called Farming for Flavors. So we have already met with Linda and Marjorie and George at the same time, tasted the wines from last year, and put together a farm plan for this year. And part of the farm plan for this year was for us to change our leaf pulling. All right, we felt we got the fruit a little too much exposed last year, that we could actually bring it to a higher level. Okay, so we're going to start on the morning side of the vine, which is the cooler side of the vine. This is, again, kind of unique where we have a divided system here. So we have kind of the warmer side of the vine on the other side, and then the cooler side here. What we want to do is we want to expose the fruit just the right amount. And rather than pulling leaves this year, what we've talked about doing as a change to our farming practices is just to pull lateral shoots. Again, Linda, maybe you can pull some lateral shoots here to show us. So these are not pulling the leaves. What we want to do is leave the leaves as an umbrella to the cluster, but still open up the vine in a way that gives us the proper circulation in there for disease pressure, and just the right amount of light to still give us those nice fresh aromas of citrus that we want from Sauvignon Blanc.
We're now at Benizer Winery, and you remember I'm George MacLeod. I'm the grower that grew the grapes that were shipped over here to Benizer, and they were picked last September. And when you pick Sauvignon Blanc, if the grapes are good and if they're mature, and you squeeze them in your hand like this, you can smell pineapple and apricot, and the juice like this is like apricot nectar that you just got out of a purchase. And now the challenge to Rodrigo here is to take that wonderful flavors and aromas and build them into a wine and not lose them. And that's the challenge, Rodrigo.
That's exactly right, George. Yeah. So basically what we did with your grapes was we whole cluster pressed them. That means that we put the whole clusters inside the press, and we squeeze with a very specific program those grapes in our pneumatic press. And after that, getting the free run and part of the hard press together in a tank, we let the solids go down, so precipitate the gross solids, and after that we rack it to a different tank, and we start our fermentation at a very, very low temperature. The reason, and exactly what you were saying, the reason why we do that very low temperature fermentation is to preserve the aromas and those apricots and pineapples there you were mentioning. So why don't we taste the wine and see if we can find those components in the glass?
All right. And I understand the reason that we do whole bunch pressing, is that the grape is a very tender and fragile class of grape, a very thin skin, and we don't want to, in effect, abuse it.
Absolutely right. So we want to start the process exactly when it arrives to the winery and not before that. So that's why we harvest in small vessels, and also we don't want to destem those grapes because we will break them before we start the press cycle. And that's pretty close, but still, any kind of oxidation, we will try to avoid it during the process.
And what else is happening right now?
Well,
with
right
this
now,
wine first, is this all bottled? And
this is just released, so we let it be in the bottle for about 4 to 5 months after we bottle it.
And why do you leave it that long after bottling?
Because it's crucial for Sauvignon Blanc, which is such a sensitive variety. When we change the vessel, it's like moving from one house to another one. It's a very traumatic experience for the wine. So we let it settle down in the bottle, aged a little bit, so that it can be tasting exactly how we want it when we release it. And right now at the winery, George, what we're doing is basically we are planning our harvest. That's on one side. We're getting new barrels in the winery. And we're working a lot with the 06 wines. With the Bordeaux varieties, we're basically pre-blending so that we can go through harvest without making any kind of adjustments or blends during the process, because we will be busy with the 07s. And we're preparing the Pinot Noirs for bottling right now, and also the Chards.
Rodrigo, you did an incredible job. This is beautiful. I'm picking up pineapple and pear like there's no tomorrow here.
I totally agree with that, George. Cheers for that.